What if I told you that $10,000 isn't about being rich, it's about being free? Free from panic when your car breaks down, free from desperation when your boss disrespects you, free from accepting opportunities that insult your worth. The Bible has been teaching this principle for 3,000 years, but most people have never connected the dots. Here's what's wild. The amount isn't magical. It's the transformation that happens inside you when you reach it. You don't just have $10,000. You become someone capable of saving $10,000, and that identity shift changes absolutely everything about your future. Today, I'm showing you exactly what the Bible teaches about this threshold, why God designed financial margins into creation itself, and how one man named Joseph used this exact principle to become the second most powerful person in Egypt during a global crisis. What I'm about to reveal in the fourth code will expose why most Christians stay broke even though they tithe faithfully. It's uncomfortable, but you need to hear it. Drop your name and location in comments. Subscribe to Solomon Speaks because what you're about to learn isn't just financial advice, it's biblical code that wealthy people have been applying for centuries without giving God credit. Let me paint you a picture. You wake up Monday morning, check your bank account, $400 until payday in 10 days. Your check engine light just came on. Your kid needs supplies for school. Your landlord sent a text about rent. You feel your chest tighten. That knot in your stomach? That's not just stress, that's survival mode. Here's what most people don't understand. Living with zero margin isn't just financially dangerous, it's spiritually and mentally crippling. You can't think clearly. You can't plan ahead. You can't take godly risks. You're trapped in an endless cycle of reacting to whatever crisis comes next. Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty." But how can you plan when you're constantly in crisis? How can you be diligent when you're desperate? You can't. Desperation forces short-term thinking. Short-term thinking keeps you poor. The Bible doesn't just tell you to save money, it shows you a psychological transformation that happens when you do. Look at Joseph in Genesis 41. Pharaoh's dream revealed 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. Joseph's solution? Collect 20% of all produce during abundant years and store it. But here's what most people miss. Joseph wasn't just preparing Egypt financially, he was preparing them psychologically. When famine struck and other nations panicked, Egypt had margin. They weren't making desperate decisions from fear. They were making strategic decisions from security. That's the power of reserves. Now let me ask you something directly. What decision are you avoiding right now because you don't have margin? What opportunity are you missing because you're locked in survival mode? What's that fear costing you in lost potential? Because once you understand what happens when you break free from that prison, everything shifts. And that takes us to the first biblical code most people completely miss. Code number 1. The power to say no. Here's a truth that will change your life. The ability to say no is more valuable than any asset you can buy. When you have zero reserves, you're forced to say yes to everything. Bad jobs, toxic relationships, unfair deals, insulting offers. You have no leverage, so you accept whatever comes. But something miraculous happens when you save $10,000. Suddenly, you can afford to walk away. That terrible boss who's been disrespecting you, you can quit and survive 3 to 6 months while finding something better. That client who's underpaying and overdemanding, you can fire them and replace them with better ones. Proverbs 22:7 warns, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender." Most people read this and think it's just about debt, but it's deeper. When you have zero margin, you're enslaved to whoever controls your next paycheck. They know you need them more than they need you. That power imbalance destroys your ability to negotiate. I know people making 6 figures who are broke because they spend every dollar. They drive expensive cars, live in fancy apartments, wear designer clothes, but they're prisoners. One job loss and their entire life collapses. Meanwhile, I know people making $40,000 annually who have $20,000 saved. They have freedom despite lower income. Here's what you need to understand. Your employer knows if you're desperate. Clients sense if you're needy. Partners can smell financial fear, and they will use it against you. Not always maliciously, but it's basic economics. When you negotiate from weakness, you get weak terms. $10,000 transforms you from desperate to discerning. You stop accepting opportunities out of fear and start choosing them from wisdom. That shift alone will change the trajectory of your entire life. Think about it. What would you do differently today if you had 3 months of expenses saved? What conversations would you have? What boundaries would you set? That's not fantasy. That's available to you if you commit to the discipline required. But here's where it gets even more powerful. Because the ability to say no is just the beginning. There's something happening in your brain when you reach this threshold that most people never talk about. And it's literally costing you money every single day you don't have reserves. Code number 2, the stress that's stealing your wealth. Here's a connection most people never make. Chronic financial stress literally costs you money. When you're constantly anxious about money, your decision-making ability deteriorates. You make impulsive purchases for emotional relief. You miss opportunities because fear clouds judgment. You accept terrible deals because you can't think clearly. Proverbs 14:30 says, "A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones." Financial peace isn't just spiritual, it's physiological. When you have margin, your cortisol levels drop, you sleep better, you think clearer, you make wiser decisions. This creates a positive feedback loop where better decisions generate better results. Studies show that financial stress impairs cognitive function as much as losing an entire night's sleep. Imagine trying to negotiate your salary, start a business, or make investment decisions while sleep deprived. That's what living without reserves does to your brain constantly. Joseph understood this. Genesis 41:56 says, "When the famine had spread over the whole country, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout Egypt." Notice his emotional state. No panic, no desperation. He had prepared during abundance, so he operated from peace during crisis. Contrast this with Genesis 47:13-15. There was no food in the whole region because the famine was severe. Both Egypt and Canaan wasted away because of the famine. Joseph collected all the money in Egypt and Canaan in payment for grain. Other nations made desperate decisions, selling everything for survival. Egypt made strategic decisions, accumulating wealth during others' panic. Here's the practical application. When you have $10,000 saved, your entire nervous system relaxes. That emergency car repair that would have triggered a panic attack becomes a mild inconvenience. That unexpected medical bill that would have meant credit card debt becomes a withdrawal from savings with a plan to replenish it. Less stress means better sleep. Better sleep means more energy. More energy means higher productivity. Higher productivity means better job performance or business results. Better results mean more income. More income means faster wealth building. See how margin creates compounding benefits beyond just the money? If you're facing financial stress right now or struggling to break free from paycheck to paycheck living, drop a comment. Say, "I need prayer for financial breakthrough," or whatever area needs intervention. Philippians 4:6 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." We're a community standing together. Now, reducing stress is powerful, but it unlocks something even more valuable. Because when your mind is clear and your emotions are stable, you can finally do what broke people simply cannot do. And this is where real wealth begins. Code number 3, from reactor to creator. Here's the shift nobody talks about. When you save $10,000, you stop reacting to life and start creating it. Without reserves, you're constantly putting out fires. With reserves, you're building fireproof structures. Proverbs 27:23-24 instructs, "Be sure you know the condition of your flocks. Give careful attention to your herds, for riches do not endure forever, and a crown is not secure for all generations." In biblical times, flocks were wealth. This passage teaches proactive wealth management, not reactive crisis response. Think about Joseph again. He didn't wait for famine to figure out what to do. He prepared during abundance. Genesis 41:49 records, Joseph stored up huge quantities of grain, like the sand of the sea. It was so much that he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. That's not hoarding, that's strategic preparation, enabling future action. When you have no margin, opportunities look like threats. Someone offers you a chance to invest in a business? You can't. You need every dollar for rent. A course could double your income? Can't afford it. A job in another city with better pay? Moving costs are impossible. Every opportunity becomes another source of stress instead of excitement. But when you have 10,000 saved, opportunities look like opportunities. That course? Investment, not expense. That business partnership? Calculated risk, not reckless gamble. That career transition? Strategic move, not desperate leap. Ecclesiastes 11:1-2 teaches, "Ship your grain across the sea. After many days, you may receive a return." Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. You can't invest in multiple ventures when you're living paycheck to paycheck. Diversification requires margin. Here's what's powerful. The same person earning the same salary makes radically different decisions based on whether they have reserves or not. Without reserves, they take whatever job offers come. With reserves, they negotiate or walk away to find better. Without reserves, they stick with underperforming investments out of fear. With reserves, they pivot strategically. You're not just saving money, you're creating options. And in life, options are everything. The ability to choose is the difference between slavery and freedom, poverty and prosperity, reaction and creation. What choice do you wish you had right now but can't make because of money? That's what $10,000 buys you. But here's what most people completely overlook. The money itself isn't even the most valuable thing you gain. There's something happening inside you as you save that's worth more than the $10,000 sitting in your account. And this is the code that separates people who stay wealthy from people who lose it all. Code number 4, the identity you're building. Here's the secret most financial advisors won't tell you. $10,000 isn't the goal. Becoming someone who can save $10,000 is. The money can be lost, stolen, or spent. But the habits, discipline, and identity you develop getting there, that's permanent wealth that nobody can take from you. Proverbs 10:4 declares, "Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth." Notice it doesn't say lucky hands or inherited hands. Diligent hands. Saving $10,000 requires diligence, consistency, delayed gratification, impulse control, long-term thinking. These are the exact character traits that build multi-generational wealth. Think about what saving $10,000 requires practically. If you save $500 monthly, that's 20 months of saying no to temptations, 20 months of budgeting, 20 months of choosing future security over present pleasure. That's not just accumulating money, that's forging character in the fire of discipline. Matthew 25:14-30 tells the parable of the talents. The master gives 3 servants different amounts, 2 invest and multiply, 1 buries his out of fear. The master's response to the faithful ones? "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things." Catch this. God doesn't trust you with more until you've proven faithful with less. $10,000 is your proving ground. It demonstrates you can delay gratification, maintain discipline, execute a plan, and steward resources responsibly. These qualities qualify you for greater financial responsibility. I've watched people win the lottery and lose it all within years. Why? Money without character is temporary. But I've also watched people start with nothing, save their first $10,000, then $50,000, then their first $1,000,000. Not because they earned more initially, but because they became someone capable of building wealth. Here's the uncomfortable truth most Christians avoid. You might be poor not because God hasn't blessed you, but because you haven't developed the character to steward blessing. Ouch. But it's true. Luke 16:10 says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much." What are you waiting for? What's stopping you from starting today? Not next month when you get a raise, not next year when things settle down. Today, even if you can only save $50 this month, that's $50 more than zero. That's the identity shift beginning. That's you becoming someone who saves instead of someone who wishes they could. The version of you that has 10,000 saved is a different person than who you are today. More disciplined, more patient, more strategic. That person attracts different opportunities, makes different decisions, lives a different life. You're not just saving money, you're becoming that person. And when you become that person, something supernatural begins to happen because God has been waiting for you to develop this character. And now that you have it, He can finally release what He's been holding back. This final code is the one that changes everything. Code number 5, positioning for divine opportunities. Here's the final secret, and it's the most supernatural. When you create financial margin through obedience and discipline, you position yourself to receive opportunities God can't give you without it. God has blessings He can't release to you yet because you're not prepared to steward them. Malachi 3:10 challenges, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." Notice the sequence. Faithfulness first, then floodgates. Joseph's story proves this. His faithfulness in small things, managing Potiphar's household, managing prison operations, positioned him to manage Egypt's economy. Genesis 41:39-40 records. Pharaoh's declaration, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders." God gave Joseph an opportunity that required financial wisdom. If Joseph had been reckless, impulsive, or undisciplined, that opportunity would have destroyed him. But his character matched the assignment. Your $10,000 isn't just money, it's evidence you're ready for bigger assignments. Proverbs 3:9-10 instructs, "Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine." When you honor God with your resources, managing them wisely and giving generously, He multiplies what remains beyond natural explanation. I'm not talking prosperity gospel nonsense where God is a cosmic vending machine. I'm talking biblical stewardship where faithfulness attracts divine favor. When God sees you handling 10,000 responsibly, He trusts you with opportunities to generate 100,000. But you can't skip steps. Romans 8:28 promises, "We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." That includes your finances. Every setback teaching you to save, every challenge teaching you discipline, every sacrifice teaching you delayed gratification. All things are working together to prepare you for the prosperity God intends. So what's your next step? Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Start saving something today. $10, $50, whatever you can. The amount matters less than the decision. You're declaring, "I'm becoming someone who builds wealth. I'm positioning myself for God's opportunities. I'm breaking generational poverty. I'm creating margin for divine assignments." $10,000 is your threshold, not because it's a magic number, but because reaching it proves you've developed the character God can trust with more. Every dollar you save is a brick in the foundation of your financial future. Every month you maintain discipline is training for greater stewardship. Every temptation you resist is preparing you for bigger blessings. $10,000 changes everything, not because it's a lot of money, but because it changes you. It transforms your psychology from survival to stability. It shifts your identity from desperate to disciplined. It converts stress into peace. It turns reactions into strategic decisions. It positions you for opportunities you can't access broke. The Bible has been teaching this for millennia. Joseph proved it by saving during abundance and prospering during famine. Proverbs teaches it through repeated warnings about diligence and planning. Jesus taught it through parables about faithful stewardship, unlocking greater responsibility. Maybe you're thinking, "I can barely make ends meet. How can I save 10,000?" Start where you are. Cut one unnecessary expense this month. Save that money. Next month, find another. Small disciplines compound into massive results. The journey of $10,000 starts with $10 saved consistently. Write this declaration in comments. "The Lord prospers the work of my hands while I sleep." Declare it publicly. Proverbs 18:21 says, "The tongue has power of life and death." Speak blessing over your finances. Subscribe to Solomon Speaks, turn on notifications, share with someone stuck in financial stress, and remember, God didn't design you for paycheck-to-paycheck living. He designed you for abundance that blesses others and advances His kingdom. May God bless every area of your life, your finances, family, faith, Future, this doesn't end here. There's still more to discover.